Hey, good morning. Good morning. How's everybody? Hello? Anybody there?
Good morning.
Hey, good morning. Oh, your connection is poor. What am I supposed to do? I don't think it is. All right. So,
Good morning, Professor.
hey, good morning, Jason. We have, okay, now 9 people in the collaborate. Okay. And Uh, I guess the rest of the class is joining gradually, one by one. So uh, somebody, uh, okay, Jason, I see you raised your hand. You have a question, Jason?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Where do I get the code to the courtesy code for the first 2 weeks?
Oh, actually, I'm going to post it. It's already over. I mean, the first two weeks are already over. So I got a super code that's extending another 2 weeks. So I'm going to post it today. Okay.
I wasn't even aware of the first one.
Well, normally, um, when you try to first sign up for the Connect, then it will ask for the code, right? It will ask for the access code, and then if you don't have it, then um, it will ask you to use 2 week temporary access. But
All right.
some people have done it already. Some people have done it already. So those once the first person has activated that 2 week courtesy access, then the clock starts from that point. So whoever is the
Okay.
first person has already, for that person, 2 weeks have lapsed already. So, uh, yeah, if you are coming in late after the 2 weeks, then you cannot get. So I'm going to post a super code. In other words, try the first trial access. It was first courtesy 2 weeks, so there was no access code. But those first 2 weeks are already over, so you will need a code. But so I have that code. I'm gonna post it, but this will give you just 2 week window, no more, right? Is to
Right.
give you the access while the book, while you're, until the book arrives. Uh,
I
all
just need
right.
to I just need to put this McGraw Hill is horrible with their service.
It's not. Um, it's because custom edition is handled by some, outside, entity, and then
I,
um, they always, every time they can't even keep track of that because every time they print new new copies. I mean, it's the same book, same custom edition, but the ones that were printed already, at the end of the summer, they had different ISBN, and then the ones that are on the back order, and when they print it, then it gets a different ISBN. So even for me, it's very confusing, and they themselves are
uh,
confused too. So it's really, difficult. But then,
I, re- I would never buy a book from McGraw Hill again. Never again.
listen. Other than this one, I don't know. I cannot speak for McGraw Hill, but their Connect is really. I use McGraw Hill because of their Connect. Of course, I also wrote a chapter. I Not just a chapter. I wrote several chapters in the custom edition. One reason is one reason I'm using the custom edition is because of that. But also another reason is the Connect. Connect is really, I would say, Connect is really good. The exams because it can it's algorithmic, meaning one person's exam is different from another person, right? Of course, it's same problem, but the orders are all jumbled, but it's not that. It's not that. Orders are not only the orders, but the problems are slightly varied from one person to another. It's just like input data are different, right? So
Right.
one basically students cannot copy from one another because, right? That's the
Yep.
I mean, if ever, right? So that's why I still stick with McGraw-Hill. But anyway,
Yeah, it's really messing up my grade because of this.
no,
Anyway.
no. Nothing to determine your grade has been done yet. Nothing
Okay.
to determine your grade.
I was scared,
there hasn't even, there hasn't even been the first test yet. Okay.
Okay.
There hasn't even been the first test, the real test yet, right? So.
All right then. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to take up most of the time here. Sorry.
That's okay. That's okay.
Right.
So now we have a better understanding of the bond, right? We talked about bond last time, and we have a better understanding of the bond. So now we can talk about the open market operation. And again, open market operation refers to the bond market, right? And I told you, open means it's open to anybody, any investor, right? Individual or institutional, domestic or foreign. So basically, stock market and bond market are all open to anybody, right? As long as you are willing to pay money, right, to buy stocks or bonds, it's open to anybody. Just a second. I left the window open, and then I have to raise my voice because of the background noise coming from outside the window. How does the Federal Reserve intervene in the bond market to implement its monetary policy? Well, this is the mechanism, how it works. And in finance and economics, the mechanism is very important. The mechanism is everything. The mechanism captures the complex process in a very succinct way. So if you can understand the mechanism and explain the mechanism, then that means you have a very solid understanding of the matter. So here, let's assume, let's use 30-year U.S. Treasury bond, zero coupon, right? Let's use that as an example. So zero coupon U.S. Treasury bond with 30 years to maturity. So zero coupon means, you all know, that they don't pay any interest. And I given you this example before. If you go to the actual example of 30-year zero coupon U.S. Treasury is called U.S. savings bond. And you can buy them from the bank. And about 20 years ago, I went to a bank. I went to a bank to buy either withdraw money from ATM or to make a deposit. Maybe it was to make a deposit because if it was from ATM, I didn't have to speak to a teller. But probably I was speaking to a teller, and then the teller was asking me if I was interested in buying U.S. savings bond. And so I realized at the time, oh, they sell it in the bank, in any commercial bank. Um, but I used this example last time, so how much its U.S. 30-year U.S. Treasury bond, 30-year zero coupon bond is selling for. It sells for $500, right? So 30 years later, you get $1,000. So you make 100% return, right? Uh, Basically, 100% holding period return, and for 30-year holding period, um, and that you so basically you make the capital gain of $500 over 30 years. And you might think, oh, that is too long. But again, if you calculate uh, the geometric average for annualizing it, annually is like 2.34%, which is much better than what the CDs are paying these days, right? During the days, when CDs were paying something like 3% or even up to 6%, 2.34% is nothing. But in this day and age, 2.34 is a very good uh, return, very good annual return. Okay, the market turned around today. I'm just checking the market. Yeah. All righty. Where was I? So, using this as an example, we understand uh, selling price is, of course, selling price is, uh, below, it's less than the face value, because face value is 1,000, selling price is 500, right? And this difference is called bond discount, because bond sells at discount. $1,000 face value bond is selling for 500. So the difference is called bond discount. And you might wonder, what is PT? That stands for price of the Treasury. Price of the Treasury. Of course, FV is face value. And today at time zero, if you're trying to buy this, then this difference is the bond discount. But 30 years later, right, when you redeem $1,000, I mean the Treasury is redeeming the bond, and you are redeeming 1,000. Should I say you're redeeming 1,000? You paid only 500, so you're not redeeming. Redeeming is something you will have to get the same thing back. But but you understand. 30 years later, at maturity, when you get 1,000, this difference is capital gain, isn't that right? This difference is capital gain, depending on where you stand. If you're standing at time zero today, right? This is bond discount. And when you are standing at time T, uppercase T, the terminal time, right? The uppercase T, capital T, represents the terminal time. So that's the maturity. So if you're standing at the maturity, then FV minus PT is the capital gain. So the holding period return, we know the holding period return is the capital gain divided by initial investment, right? That's basically the return on investment on Treasury, and it's the holding period return. And this return is also called risk-free rate or risk-free return. Risk-free return. It's completely risk-free. Why? Think about it. First of all, no other bonds, corporate or government, are safer than U.S. Treasury. Why? Think about it. Any company or any government that sells the bond, right, must have income and from the income they will they make profit from the income, right? And they will have to have sufficient profit, right? Um, Collected, sufficient, profit accumulated over 30 years to pay back uh, the bond, right? To pay the bondholders at maturity. For example, if U.S. Treasury sold $10 million worth of bonds, right? $10 million worth of bonds. That's roughly about 10,000 bonds. I said, um, uh, actually, because if they want to raise 10 million, right, they should sell 20,000 bonds. 20,000. Isn't that right? Because um, because each bond will sell for $500, right? So to raise, if he sells for if he sells for 1,000, that's 10,000 bonds, right? To raise, $10 million. But since they are all selling for $500, then it's 2 times that. So 20,000 bonds, 20,000. So 30 years later, then, by the time, when it matures, then uh, Treasury will need to have $20 million, right? To pay back $1,000 to everyone, right? Companies too. Companies will have to if they sold 30-year bond, right? They will have to generate, right? $10 million. They borrowed $10 million. And they will have to have accumulated $10 million in profit to pay the bondholders 30 years later, right? So then, a source of income for any business is obvious. They have sales revenue, right? That's the source of income, right? Sales revenue. But for governments, what is the source of their income? Hmm? For governments, what is the source of their income? Anybody?
I would say taxes. No, not really.
Yeah, yes. Taxes, of
Taxes.
course.
Module responded.
Government's source of income for governments is taxes. There's no other source, right? Well, how else would, yeah, Jason. So I'm going to give you 0.25 for that. And this is FNB 100, section 1100 and 0929 today, right? Yeah. And then think about it. Taxes, if you think about it, taxes are basically some percentage of taxes are, if you think about it, some percentage of the total national income. Isn't that right? Think
That's
about it.
correct.
Everyone will pay a different amount of taxes, right? Everyone will pay different amount of taxes. Every company, every business will pay different amount of taxes depending on their income, depending on their operating income, right? Or taxable income. But overall, the sum of if the tax revenue of the U.S. government is $4 trillion, $4 trillion, and U.S. GDP, the total income of the economy, is roughly about 22 trillion. 2000, I believe that's 2000 as of 2020. 2020, it must have been somewhere around 22 trillion. So if U.S. government, let's say, a tax revenue of U.S. government is $5 trillion, let's say $5 trillion, that would be roughly about 25% of the U.S. GDP, right? Isn't that right? So tax revenue is basically some
That's correct,
percent.
Professor.
Yeah. What did you say?
I said that was
Some.
right. That was right.
Yeah. Okay. Uh, um, suddenly, there's a burst of, burst of sound, and it's the microphone. Uh, the microphone isn't very. I don't know. It's the microphone or the audio. Very
It's
smooth,
the
at the
opposite.
beginning,
It's kind
because
of glitchy.
sound is bursting at the beginning, right? Uh, but did you say something?
I was saying how the sound can be very glitchy sometimes.
Uh, no. Don't worry about it. I mean, it's not. It's not. I don't think it's the volume. I mean, you don't have to lower your volume. I need to. I want you to keep your volume relatively at high level, because I can hear you better. But when someone speaks, unlike natural situation, through the microphone and through the internet, the beginning of the speech is always like a bursting of sound. So it's suddenly you're caught, just just caught by surprise. And so where was I? um yeah, the um tax revenue is some percentage. The tax revenue is some percentage of uh, the income of the economy, and the income of the economy is called the GDP, right? So then let's take a look at the GDP of major economies. And this was as of 2018. U.S. Had 20.5 trillion. European Union is one economic bloc, so we treat it like one economic entity. Of course, Germany has the largest economy among within European Union, followed by France and followed by Italy and so on, right? Uh, I think Germany has like 3 point something trillion. Um, But European Union did something like 16 trillion as of 2018. China did something like 13.5 trillion. Japan 5 trillion, right? Then think about it. If the tax revenue is the income source of income for governments, whoever has the largest GDP will have the largest tax revenue. And the largest tax revenue means, the deepest pocket. And whoever has the deepest pocket will have the highest solvency, right? Solvency is the ability to pay back. So whoever has the deepest pocket has the highest solvency. So the one with the deepest pocket or highest solvency will and their debt will be the safest one. Isn't that right? Nobody, in other words, nobody can have a safer debt than U.S. Treasury, right? Also, if you think about it, U.S. government will be the last one standing when all other governments fall. In other words, when they go bankrupt. Let's say all governments go bankrupt. I mean, the government with the most shallow pocket will go bankrupt first, right? And then the next one, and the next one, and the next one, and so on, and so on, and so forth. So then the one with the deepest pocket will go bankrupt the last, right? Also, So U.S. government is the, if the U.S. government is the last one to go bankrupt, it's the safest one. The bond of the U.S. Treasury is the safest one. Also, as long as there is one person standing in the U.S. economy and one corporation left standing in the U.S. economy, U.S. government will have tax revenue. Isn't that right? As long as there is one person left standing, one company left standing, right? They will still have tax revenue. So U.S. government won't go down until this last person goes down and the last business goes down. Make sense? So who can be safer than U.S. government? Nobody can be safer than U.S. government, right? That's why it is called risk-free rate, right? Return on the U.S. Treasury is called risk-free return. Risk-free return. Now, but then let's think about how this risk-free return can change. Of course, it can change. It can go up or go down. And how would it go up? Well, it will go up if the selling price of the Treasury goes down, right? Now, just think about it. Suppose that currently we know U.S. savings bond sells for $500, right? But what if the selling price goes down to $400? Now, this is a very simple mathematical logic, but people find it so hard. It's very clear. There's so much clarity to this, but even at that very basic level of logic, people break down. They can't hold on to that thought. And that's what I found over and over. Now, let me ask you. So, so the price of the selling price of the Treasury goes down to 400, right? So the denominator will go down. Denominator will go down because it from 500 to 400, and then this goes down too, right? This goes down too. But what happens to the numerator? Well, what happens to the numerator? Will it go up or go down? Anyone?
It would go up.
Yeah, it will go up. Was that Jason?
Yes.
Jason? All right,
yes.
Jason. Yeah, thank you. You got 0.25 for that. Yeah. Yeah, the numerator will go up because why? The face value is 1,000. It's a constant number, right? Face value doesn't change. It's 1,000, so it's constant. But PT goes down. So as PT goes down, the difference will go up, right? The bond discount will go up. So the numerator goes up, the denominator goes down. What's going to happen to the whole fraction? What's going to happen to the value of the whole fraction? Anyone? I have 14 people, and no one can answer that question.
Let's see what the let's see
this
the
is just
the fraction.
This is just logical reasoning, right? You said
Right.
Numerator goes up, denominator goes down. Then what happens to the whole fraction? What happens to the value of the whole fraction?
It becomes a mixed number, I guess.
It's not a mixed number. It's not a
increases.
What do you mean mixed number? All the fraction comes
I made a
out as one
mistake.
number.
It has there'll be more left over, I guess. Not sure.
Leftover sounds like you're doing a subtraction. Look, all fractions come out as just a single number, isn't it right? One single number. Fraction is a division.
Yeah.
The result is a single number, right? So what happens to that number?
It becomes a whole number.
No. We don't know if it's going to be a whole number or not. Okay, whole number means an integer. We don't know if it's going to be an integer or not.
Right.
My question is just simply, I mean, because numerator goes up, denominator goes down, something will happen
Right.
to the fraction. Something will happen to the result or the value of the fraction. And it's a logical thing. But what's going to happen? I mean, is it going to go up or is it going to go down?
Up.
I believe it's going to go
Up?
down.
Yeah, who said up? Who said up? I heard someone say up.
Felicia.
Felicia? Okay, okay. Yeah, Felicia. All right, thank you, Felicia. You got 0.25 for that answer. Yes, of course. It's just the logic. I don't understand why people, try to come up with, I don't understand. You are all trying to come up with some kind of verbiage. I don't want verbiage. It's a simple logic. It's a simple logic. When numerator goes up,
I guess at the end of the day, keep it simple.
yeah. But logic is straightforward. Logic is always a straightforward and simple thing, right? I mean, who cannot think about this? I mean, who cannot understand this? Numerator gets bigger, denominator gets smaller, then the whole fraction will go up because numerator is bigger, right? Just plug in a few numbers. I mean, is 4 over 3 greater, or is 5 over 3 greater? Huh? Anybody knows 5 over 3 will be greater, or is 5 over 3 greater, or 5 over 2 greater, or 6 over 2 greater? I mean, look, from 5 over 3 it became 6 over 2, right? Numerator grew, denominator went down, then the whole fraction gets bigger, right? This is just an elementary school logic, right? Even a 6th grader can understand this logic. And it's not a difficult thing. The logic is a very simple and straightforward thing. Okay? So think about it. And so we have the answer here. If the price of the Treasury goes down, risk-free return goes up. Of course. When this goes up and this goes down, the result will have to go up. How else can it be? It's either up or down, right? When we are talking about fraction, there are only 2 ways it can go, either up or down, right? It's that clear, right? There's no fuzziness about it. There's no fuzziness. Nothing fuzzy about it, right? No cloudy verbiage no nebulous verbiage that will cloud it, that will make it cloudy or foggy, right? It's very clear. It's either going up or going down, right? And numerator goes up, denominator goes down, it will go up. If the numerator goes down, denominator goes up, it will go down, right? This is basically, so there is we can tell there is an inverse relationship, right? There's an inverse relationship between the price of the Treasury and the return, risk-free return. So think about it. Here, so if price of the Treasury goes down, then that means Treasury is paying you a higher return now, if you buy Treasury, then your return is higher. Then in the bond market, all bonds must pay a bigger return now, higher return now. All bonds must pay at least, the coupon rate that is at least equal to or greater than the risk-free return. Okay, why? Because in the bond market, they are all competitors, right? There is federal government, right? Treasury Department selling bond in the bond market. There are corporations selling bond in the bond market, and then municipal governments, state governments, and local governments, right? Municipal governments. They are all in the bond market competing for investors, right? Competing for investors' money. But among all these bond sellers, among all these competitors, U.S. government is the safest borrower and the biggest borrower. Isn't that right? Nobody is safer than U.S. government, U.S. federal government, and nobody is safer than the U.S. federal government. Think about it. If the safest and the biggest borrower is paying higher return, then shouldn't all the other guys must follow suit? Right? Doesn't it make sense? Because the safest borrower is also the biggest borrower. So it's the biggest player in the market. It's the biggest player in the market. And the biggest and the safest player is paying higher return. And if you're not paying a higher return, higher than that, then you will lose all investors. You will lose all investors to the federal government. Isn't it right? It's a competition. You all know right? It's a common sense. If there's any seller who lowest priced, right? Lowest price seller, you will all go to the lowest price seller, right? There's no reason to go to anybody else. So all the bonds in the market must pay higher interest rate, or at least something equal to the risk-free rate, right? So the coupon rates will go up, and if the coupon rates go up, all the bonds go up, right? All the coupons of the bond go up, all the bonds go up. Then the banks will also need to pay higher interest rate. They will need to realign their interest rate. Why? Because think about it, banks are also in competition with the bond market, because banks also borrow money from the depositors, right? Think about it. Banks, if the bank interest rate is 5% on average, right? On average, the average market rate, meaning, bank interest rate is 5%, but in the bond market, bonds are paying on average 10%. If you had $10,000, where would you go? Where would you put your money in? Isn't it clear? Nobody will put their money in the bank when the bond market is paying 10% interest in general, right? So everyone is clear about this?
Yes.
Okay, at least Jason, I think only one person is clear. What about the rest of the class? You don't follow? You don't follow this logic? Huh?
Come on, respond.
Someone said something. Was it Jason? Only it was microphone. I saw only Jason's microphone, and
Yes.
okay.
Come on, guys, say something.
Huh?
I was saying, I'm telling my classmates to say something.
Yeah, I thought someone was saying something, but I couldn't. I could barely hear. And then, so I can tell at least Jason is following, but the rest of the class, I can't, I don't see any response, any reaction. I will have to assume that everyone is on board and everyone is, following. Yeah, well, so the bank, so overall, throughout the entire financial market, right, interest rate goes up. It has, so when the Federal Reserve lowers when the Federal Reserve, uh, the price of the Treasury goes down, risk-free return goes up, and that sets all this chain reaction. It all goes throughout the entire financial market. All the corporate bonds, the return will have to go up. They will have to raise their coupon rate, right? Banks will also have to pay higher interest rate. So throughout the economy, overall interest rate will go up. And as we all understand already that there is an inverse relationship. I mean, these inverse relationships are really the key to understanding the universe. You probably don't realize it, but I understood Einstein's theory of relativity as inverse relationship. And once I saw it as an inverse relationship, then it became very clear. Now, we all know if interest rate goes up, it becomes more difficult to borrow. The borrowing goes down, right? We all know this. If interest rate goes up, borrowing goes down, and therefore money supply goes down. As the money supply goes down, it cools off the output of the economy, right? The economy cools off, and it's exactly the mirror image, when interest rate goes down. But previously, we didn't know why the interest rate was going up. We didn't know why interest rate went up. Of course, there's Federal Reserve behind it, but there are two reasons. I'm going to talk about that later because at this point, you will just get confused. But one, there's an endogenous reason for rise of interest rate or change in interest rate in general. Endogenous reason and exogenous reason for interest rate changes. Federal Reserve is the exogenous reason. Endogenous meaning coming from inside the system, right? Federal Reserve is an external force to the interest rate movement because it's an intervention in the market. But whatever whatever it may be, when price of the Treasury goes down, and then the opposite is also true. If the price of the Treasury goes up, then the risk-free return will go down. As risk-free return goes down, overall interest rate will go down, right? And as the overall interest rate goes down, borrowing goes up. As borrowing goes up, money supply goes up, and it fuels the economy. Okay, but then next question is, why does the price of the Treasury go down? Okay, let me just quickly check. I heard some. No, it wasn't. Okay, I heard. So why does the price of the Treasury go down or go up? Well, first of all, price will go down if there is price will go down if there is more supply. If there's more supply of anything, price will go down. There are only two reasons for price to go down. One, more supply than demand, or less demand than supply, right? Now, think about it. If the Federal Reserve sells more Treasury securities, right? Then more sale is supply, right? More supply, right? Sell is supply, buy is demand, right? Everybody's clear about that? Sell adds to the supply side, right? Sell means increase in supply, right? There must be a seller, right? Seller supplies something. Seller supplies goods. So seller is the supplier. Federal Reserve sells more Treasury. Of course, that means Treasury is selling. Treasury Department is selling Treasury securities. But through the windows of Federal Reserve and commercial banks, they can sell more. Normally, they use the commercial banks, but Federal Reserve can actively increase the sale of Treasury. Okay, so if there is more supply, price will have to go down, right? Price will have to go down, and if Federal Reserve buys back the Treasury securities, right? It's buying back because Treasury securities are now held by the investors in the market, right? You want to take it away from the hands of the investors, so you buy back. Okay, if you buy back, it's a demand, right? Demand is push. There's a more demand, increased demand. So the increased demand pushes up the price of the Treasury. It pushes up the price of the Treasury. Okay, makes sense. And if the price goes up, the opposite happens because the denominator goes up, but the numerator will go down, right? Because face value is always 1,000. It's a constant. But as the selling price of the Treasury goes up, this margin will close. This gap will close, right? So smaller numerator, bigger denominator, the whole fraction will have to go down, right? Everyone is clear about that. How about you, Alisa? Alisa, are you there? Alisa?
Yes.
Alisa.
Yes.
So you're clear. You follow, right? You follow the logic so far?
Yes.
Okay, good. Cora Fromman, are you there, Cora? Cora, are you? I think I lost Cora. Felicia, are you there?
Yes, I'm there. I'm understanding.
Okay, so you follow the logic here so far, right?
Yes, I am.
You follow? Okay, great, good. Grayson, are you there? Grayson, okay. Jason, I
Where
know
you
you're
at,
there.
Grayson?
Yeah,
Yep, that's
yeah.
me in the flesh.
Okay, I know you are there and you're following. Jared, are you there? And yeah,
I
Jared.
understand. Yeah.
Okay, good, great. Jessica, are you? Oh, Jessica, you're
Yeah.
no taker, right?
Yeah, I'm not good.
All right.
He's my note taker.
Yeah, I know. You don't have to. Jesus, are you there? Jesus, I don't think he's there. Jordan, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, and do you follow the logic so far?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
okay, but like I just have to study it to like actually.
Yeah, and it's straightforward. It's very straightforward, simple, and clear, right? And that's the beauty of it. That's actually the beauty of it. That's actually the beauty of finance and economics. It just relies on very solid logic, very solid but simple logic, right? And Justin, are you there? Justin?
Yeah.
Okay, and do you follow so far?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Michelle, are you there? Michelle?
I'm here, Professor.
Okay, all righty. So are you following so far? Are you following?
Yep, I'm following.
Okay, great, great. I mean, everyone is here, but somehow nobody is, hardly anybody is responding. Only Jason has been responding voluntarily so far. Natalie, do you
Yes,
follow?
Professor. Um, I just have a question about Excel.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Will we have Excel problems on our tests and exams?
yeah, yeah. Um, Not just yet, but from the midterm, yes, there will be, and even in the first quiz, uh, you don't have to do it on Excel because um, the problem isn't in Excel, but you can solve it in Excel. But it's up to you. I mean, because the problem, I couldn't build Excel into the problem. Um, there's a limitation to what I can do with Blackboard. Uh, but that's why I like Connect because in Connect they can um, embed Excel um in the problem, and you can just
Also, if we just
mhm.
continue to study these practice tests and then, pay attention to the lectures, of course, like
Yeah, of course. Yes, of
we should
course.
be good, right?
You should be good.
Okay.
That's what the lecture is all about. I mean, you do exactly as demonstrated in the lecture. I mean, for like mathematical problems, you do exactly as demonstrated in the lecture.
Well,
Uh,
it's a lot of information.
yeah,
Like
I know,
a lot of
I know.
information.
Look, compared to any other classes, right? Compared to any other courses, this class is more demanding, but it's the nature of the course. I mean, without the understanding of the monetary policy of the Federal Reserve, um, you cannot really get a grasp of how how the stock market will behave or how the bond market will behave. I mean, this is just labeled 100, but this is in Baruch this is finance 3000, right? But we cannot give but in Baruch they can do it like they can teach they can offer this course as a 3000 level course because um, first 2 years in the first 2 years they will uh, uh, first 2 years the students get all these like intro level things done, preliminary uh, courses done, and after having done all of that, which would also include macro and microeconomics, uh, 200 level, and then you can start on finance 3000. But at BMCC we have this is a 2-year program, so we cannot wait until the students have done all of that. In other words, those prerequisites that normally 4-year schools have before finance, principles of finance, we don't have the luxury of time to have that all of that as prerequisite. So we just but this class will have to transfer to any Baruch's Finance 3000 or any NYU Finance 3000 or Columbia Finance 3000. All 4-year schools, this will have to meet the standards, prerequisites of all 4-year programs, finance class, principles of finance class. But we cannot have all those prerequisites because those prerequisites take time, and there's no time for that, right? Students don't uh, wait, take all those courses, and then wait 2 years and after uh, meeting all those prerequisites, and come to this class after all that. So um, without those prerequisites, uh, we offer this course. So obviously, it's a lot. It's a lot. There's more. I'm condensing as much as I could. I'm condensing as much as I can within just 14 weeks. What you would have what you should have done in the past 2 semesters at least. At least like.
Right. Not to expose like a method, but something I've noticed in college,
Mhm,
like some of the classes, it's not a hard class. I'm aware.
mhm, mhm.
It's not hard, but
Yeah.
some of the classes that seem hard, lots of info, lots just lots of information,
Yeah, yeah. As
lots
I
of stuff.
said,
I noticed that really
mhm.
the midterm and the exams are just the practice tests. Like you don't really get
So
blindsided. Like it's like as if the professor knows, yeah, I'm giving you a lot of info, but if you just study the practice test, you'll be good in the exam. Am I right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I mean, in this class, based everything in the exam is everything you learned from the lecture, right? The lecture notes, lecture videos, everything you learned from it. That's what's going to be on the exam. Okay.
It's a lot.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I know,
Okay,
I know.
Professor.
But what can you? I mean, it's a very demanding course. It's a very, very demanding course, right? It's a tough battle, and that's why I call this like I liken this. I compare this to an intellectual martial art, right? It's an intellectual martial art. It's very demanding.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, yeah. It requires a lot of mental discipline,
Yes,
right?
it does.
You have
It
to
really
have,
does. I
some
mean,
kind
I
of.
studied martial arts, so I know.
You need to have your own, mental regimen, right? It cannot be a freewheeling thought. If you have, a freewheeling mind, uh, uh, then it would be more, it would be tougher. But if you have a methodical, I mean, if you have some, methodical habit um, uh, in doing everything, methodical. If you're methodical, and if you have a regimen, your own regimen, your own, system of doing things. If you're a quite regimented person, disciplined mind, um, you can handle it. It's intellectual martial art, right? But uh, uh, if you overcome all those difficulties, and if you but end of the by the end of the semester, um, the reward is much sweeter, right? The reward is much greater and much sweeter. Okay.
Thank you,
All righty.
Professor.
So, yeah. All righty. Natasha, are you there, Natasha?
Yes, I am, Professor.
Okay. And you're following so far?
Yes.
Okay, great. Nolvia, are you there? Nolvia?
Yes,
Okay. So, are you following so far?
yes.
Okay, great. Victoria, are you there?
I'm
Yep,
here
you're
and I'm
there.
following, Professor.
Okay, great, great. All right. So it looks like everyone is here and everyone is following. I just got, I
Don't
got,
mind me, Professor. I'm actually standing out here waiting, looking around for my book.
well, I was just, worried that I lost, because everyone is very quiet. I lost the entire uh, class. So, all righty. So this completes the picture now. This completes the picture. What picture am I talking about? This picture. You see the inverse relationship between the interest rate and inverse relationship between the interest rate and the economy, right? If interest rate goes down, when interest rate goes down, the economy is what should I say, stimulated. Economy is stimulated. When interest rate goes up, economy is cooled off. But then what causes the interest rate to go up or to go down. That part was missing. Now that part is complete, right? Federal Reserve, action of the Federal Reserve, right, to increase sale of Treasury securities or buy repurchase, buying back of Treasury securities causes all that to happen. So in other words, this is all through the market mechanism. In other words, I've been telling you, Federal Reserve doesn't say let the rate be 10% from tomorrow. It's not like, a central authority, issuing a decree, right? Let the gas price be, $2 from tomorrow. It's not like that. They have to work through the market system, right? Through demand and supply. And this way, you see, inevitably money supply goes down or goes up. That's called, monetary. Basically, through monetary policy. Through monetary policy, the Federal Reserve stimulates the economy or cools off the economy. And there are only two ways the monetary policy can go. One is, expansionary, and the other one is contractionary. Contractionary, think about it. Money supply goes down. If the money supply goes down, that means money supply will be tight. Hence, is contractionary. So if interest rate goes up, money supply goes down. It's contractionary monetary policy. And expansionary is also called easy money policy. You're easing up money supply, right? Money supply, and by lowering interest rate, you expand the money supply and thereby stimulate the economy. And we have been on expansionary monetary policy ever since 2008, right? And in 2008, we all know it was financial crisis, and due to financial crisis, we had a recession. Economy turned around. Economy bottomed out actually in early 2010, but since then it has been a very prolonged and what should I say, attenuated or prolonged path of recovery. In other words, recovery didn't happen that quickly, right? It took like almost a decade for the economy to recover. By 2016, by the end of 2016, you remember from the Fed funds rate graph, you remember that by 2018, the interest rate, Fed funds rate went up to like 2.5%. So that means, why did the interest rate go up? The economy was already, seeing the effect of expansion. It didn't just, expand just overnight. It can't, but it took a long, long time. But the expansion was very solid. Expansion of, economy expanded at least like, by more than 2% a year, every year. And that is a very, very important thing. Rather than a quick recovery and then, back to the, contractionary cycle, deflationary cycle, or better than, even slow, even if it is slow, but steady and long recovery, long expansion. It's a very important thing. But then in 2020 the pandemic hit, a very brief recession, very brief, just not even 2 quarters, and then thanks to the stimulus package, the economy didn't really go into recession. And also, low interest rate. And the expansionary monetary policy implemented in 2000 after the aftermath of 2008 financial crisis was specifically called quantitative easing. Quantitative easing. And what is quantitative easing? Well, it's the same thing as expansionary policy. Think about it. Quantitative easing literally means they are easing up money supply in a massive quantity, right? But how is it different from why they call it specifically QE? Why don't they call it just expansionary policy? Well, this time it was on a large scale, more, larger scale. So quantitative easing is also called large scale asset purchase, right? Large scale asset purchase. And there has been actually 4 quantitative easings, QEs, implemented in the last, in the past, like 12 years, right? The first quantitative easing was in 2008 and 2009, 2012, and the fourth one is relatively more recent, like in 2017 or 18, 16, sometime around that. But why then? What is the difference between the QE and just regular easy money policy? Now, during the regular easy money policy, just ordinary expansionary monetary policy, in that case, Federal Reserve buys only Treasury securities, meaning T-bills, Treasury notes, and Treasury bonds. But in large-scale asset purchase, they even bought corporate bonds. Federal Reserve normally doesn't buy corporate bonds. Okay, because it's not the government security. Corporate bonds are not. But in QE they even bought corporate bonds, but not low-quality corporate bonds because they are high risk. They bought only, like, at least above BBB rated corporate bonds. That way they could inject more money supply into the economy. Now, injecting money supply into the economy, this is another, sometimes the people misunderstand it. During the quantitative easing, the critics of the Federal Reserve and the critics of the Democrat government, Obama administration, were criticizing that the Federal Reserve is printing out money in mass by tons, and they are trying to inundate the economy with inflation. But this criticism was unfounded, and I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about why it is unfounded after the break. I mean, it's already 12:10, 12:11. So I went on too much, without any break. So we'll take a 10-minute break. I think this is the right time to take a break, and we'll reconvene at 12:21. Okay, let's reconvene at 12:21. Right?
All right, Professor. That sounds
All right.
like a plan.
All righty. All right. All right, we're back. We're back. So let me then explain. Before the break, I said uh, during those quantitative easings, series of quantitative easings, the critics were um, criticizing the quantitative easing, basically accusing the Federal Reserve and the Obama administration for inundating the economy with money supply, uh, inundating and therefore resulting in inflation, but actually causing inflation. Actually, the inflation, there was no inflation. I mean, inflation was always there, but it was a very much. I'm telling you, Federal Reserve. We don't we don't dislike inflation. I mean, inflation is not necessarily a bad thing. Inflation is not an evil. Excessive inflation or accelerating inflation is a bad thing, but a moderate level of inflation is a good thing. I've been telling you
Did you say something,
about.
Professor?
I'm sorry, what? Uh, Come again? Was it Jason? Did you say something? I thought. Okay, if you uh, probably okay, probably not. I've been telling you, and we already went over this. Um, a moderate inflation around 2% is not a bad thing. It's the sign of a vibrant economy, right? I've been telling you. And we've had since 2009, 2009 we had like, uh, this deflation. In other words, the negative inflation, right? And the economy shrank. But the from 2010, we've had mild inflations, like under 2%. So that isn't really something to cry out, right? That isn't really something to cry out about. Um, but throughout the entire Obama administration, uh, they were criticizing, and the criticism came mainly from the Republican side, right? And they were saying, a Fed is printing money by tons, right? Fed is printing money by tons. They don't worry about inflation, blah blah blah. And it was a criticism. It was an attack, actually, on Obama administration. But first of all, the the administrative branch, administration, the government doesn't have anything to do with the monetary policy. Monetary policy is purely and solely uh, the doings of uh, the Federal Reserve. And the Federal Reserve chairman at the time was Ban Bernanke. Ban Bernanke served 2 terms, but Ban Bernanke was appointed by George W. Bush. So Ban Bernanke was so basically, Federal Reserve is an independent organization. It's not bipartisan. It's not partisan. It's not partisan, right? Um, they must remain independent, because if they are swayed by politics, then the economy could get ruined. So Federal Reserve is an independent organization, and it is, by law, ensured that independence of Federal Reserve is guaranteed by law. And then, but Ban Bernanke was appointed by George W. Bush, but he served 2 terms, so he also served through Obama administration. Because remember, Ban Bernanke was the chair of the Federal Reserve when the interest rates started to rise to like 5.25% in 2007. So Ban Bernanke was Fed chairman at least since from 2005 and until 2000. when, 2 terms would be like 10 years, 8 years, 10 years, so 2000, at least something like 2013, 14. And then, Janet Yellen was appointed. Janet Yellen served as the chairwoman of the Federal Reserve for 1 term. She served 1 term, and now it's Jerome Powell is on his 2nd term, I believe. But think about it. So Ben Bernanke was appointed by George W. And then if the critics were criticizing, Ben Bernanke and the federal policy, actually, they were, and it's not by the order of Obama that, a Federal Reserve was implementing quantitative easings. So the critics were actually, they were attacking Obama administration because the criticism came mostly from Republican side. They were, if you think about it, then they were actually axing their own foot or shooting their own foot, right? They were shooting their own foot. And another thing is that the criticism was mainly about inflation. They are printing tons of money and causing the inflation. But look, if they really meant literally printing money, then that's pure ignorance, right? Now, quantitative easing or expansionary monetary policy is basically expanding money supply. So they are in other words, they are injecting money into the money supply into the economy. But then that expression is only a metaphor. It's only a metaphor, right? They don't print money. They don't print physical money. It's all, called balance sheet transactions. Balance sheet transaction. What is a balance sheet transaction? This is the balance sheet transaction. First of all, suppose Federal Reserve is buying $10 million worth of Treasury bill, right? $10 million worth of Treasury bill. They simply, what happens is they buy $10 million of T-bill from a commercial bank. So what happens between the Federal Reserve and the commercial bank? T-bills will be transferred, right, from the commercial bank to the Federal Reserve. So the T-bills were assets of the commercial banks previously. So on their asset side, T-bills were there, right? T-bills were there in the first place. So this is what happens first. But those T-bills go down by 10 million because it's transferred to the Federal Reserve, sold to the Federal Reserve. And originally there was no 10 million, but this 10 million is transferred. So it's an asset. Federal Reserve's asset side grows by 10 million, and this 10 million is in T-bill. But then think about it. When you buy something, you have to pay, right? This creates when Federal Reserve bought $10 million worth of T-bills, it creates a liability on the Federal Reserve side, creates a liability. So Federal Reserve creates $10 million in cash, reserve, not cash, reserve, right? $10 million. Normally you pay cash, but between the Federal Reserve and commercial banks, Federal Reserve creates accounts receivable of $10 million. Accounts payable, right? Which is liability. Then when at the same time, commercial bank will create accounts receivable of 10 million, right? accounts receivable of 10 million. In other words, between the Federal Reserve and commercial bank, there is $10 million matching $10 million, a matching account payable and accounts receivable of $10 million, which means, there doesn't have to be any transfer of actual money, but by creating accounts receivable, eventually that means they will, they have a claim to 10 million. Commercial bank has a claim to of 10 million against the Federal Reserve. Federal Reserve has a liability, right? Federal Reserve owes 10 million to the commercial bank. So in the commercial banks, on the side of the commercial bank, if you think about it, in their asset side of the balance sheet, there is no change in the amount of dollars, because originally they had 10 million in T-bill, right? But that's gone. But instead, they have 10 million in dollars, not in T-bills, but in reserve, right? There's no actual cash. There was no actual cash transferred. But think about it. I don't know how many of you, I don't know if you have ever got a loan from a bank, but if you did, if you ever got a loan from a bank, how do you know you got the loan, or how do you receive it? Does anyone have an experience of getting a loan from a bank? Let's say even $10,000 loan, not a big one. Let's say $10,000 loan. Anybody has ever got a loan from a bank? No.
No, I don't have a loan.
Okay, yeah,
I find it
that's
to be a
good
little
thing.
too risky.
No. I mean, if you have a good investment opportunity to put $10,000 in, right? And if you got a loan for 5%, but this investment opportunity is giving you 10% return, basically, the loan is already paying for itself, right? Because okay, nobody ever got a loan from a bank, but let me tell you, if you get a loan from a bank, how do you receive the loan? Question is, nobody knows. Some people say, well, you get a check from the bank. That's one way, but that was prior to 1990s. I think prior to 1990s, check was the only way, right? You will receive a check for $10,000 from a bank. But these days, at least post 1995, with the advent of the internet, actually the world went online in 1995. Actually, I remember that because and also so the world was connected online through World Wide Web. That came in 1995, and prior to that, there was small intranet here and there. College campuses were on intranet. The financial institutions were on intranet, and also between different institutions, financial institutions, they were online. Financial institutions were online. Financial market was online amongst themselves. But universities were also on intranet and online. I mean, universities were also, to some limited extent, they were online, but not all the mainframes were online until 1995. But 1995, that just happened in 95. And then after 1995, if you get a loan, it is simply a direct deposit, right? Suppose you applied for a loan, right, $10,000, and let's say you got approved, then you'll get an email that your loan was approved. And then, the next day, or the email might say the loan will be available, or loan will be um, uh, available for withdrawal uh, 24 hours, from this date or whatever. And then the next day, you open your mobile banking app, you will see your balance just increased by 10,000, right? And there was a deposit of 10,000 from the bank, or the lender who you applied for the loan. So everything is basically digital. In other words, just because you got $10,000 loan, does that mean in your account there is actually $10,000 in cash? No. In your account, I mean, money doesn't have your name on it. I mean, let's say you already have if you put money in the bank, some of it is retained within the bank, right? Within the branch. The branch has to meet the required reserve. What was that? I just, Jordan, yeah, because people get loans on a car and don't have the full amount. Okay, but what do you mean by the full amount?
Like when you finance a car, like you're taking out a loan for that amount, but like you don't have that physical amount in your bank account, like you're kind of paying it off.
Yeah, that's right. But look, the loan was already paid to the car dealership, right? You don't have that loan, of course. You don't see that because when you buy a car, right? The Other than your down payment, you make a down payment. A down payment goes to the car dealership, and the loan, right? The balance is the loan. Other than the down payment, the balance is the loan. It's not deposited into your account. It's deposited into the dealership's account. That's why the dealership releases the car to you, right? So yeah, the loan is in your name, but the loan is already, the loan doesn't even stay in your account. It goes directly to the dealership, right? Car dealership. But what I'm saying is, this loan, let's say you got a $10,000 loan, and this is not for paying for the car or anything. It's just a loan that you can use for your own whatever purpose. And it's just direct deposit, and the direct deposit is basically something that doesn't require any physical cash, right? Because when you put your money in the bank, I mean, forget about the loan, but let's say you put $10,000 in the bank, it doesn't stay in the bank, right? It gets moved around. It can be loaned out, except for the minimum required reserve. It gets loaned out, and even the required reserve, right? If your money is part of your money can be part of the required reserve, or it may not even remain there. Your money gets loaned out already, but in your bank statement, you have $10,000 deposit, right? Just the same, you got a $10,000 loan. It doesn't have to be there. It doesn't have to be there. Bank uses it already, right? But this is. But in your statement, there is $10,000 in your if you open your mobile app, there is $10,000. Your balance is $10,000 greater. Then that gives you power to write checks up to $10,000, or it gives you power to withdraw money from the ATM up to $10,000. Isn't that right? In other words, no actual physical cash needs to be transferred, right? That's the same thing that happens between the Federal Reserve and the commercial bank. um, Federal Reserve simply creates $10 million accounts payable, right, which is a liability to the commercial bank, and the commercial bank automatically creates $10 million in accounts receivable that they will, collect eventually from the Federal Reserve, but without any physical cash being transferred. This enables the commercial bank to create a new loan up to $10 million, right? Does that make sense? In other words, commercial banks, this gives power to the commercial banks to create loans up to $10 million. So that means throughout this economy, $10 million more loan is created. And $10 million more loan means, more money supply, right? Whoever borrows that 10 million will use it to pay for their capacity expansion, right? And then that goes to the construction company. That goes also to the equipment manufacturer. So they will pay their workers. You will also pay your workers. It all feeds back into the economy. So that's without any cash actually, transferring, right? Without any cash being transferred, it creates money supply throughout the economy. Then, so it's all balance sheet transaction. No actual money is being printed. And what about how does that affect the Fed funds market? Yeah. Now this is in a big picture, the mechanism, the big picture of the monetary policy, and the mechanism that is taking place, and then how does that affect the Fed funds market? So think about it. This bank is suddenly this bank has $10 million, no cash, but the balance of reserve they have $10 million. So if they can make a loan, they will make a loan. But if there is nobody is coming to borrow money, what do? They can put it into the Fed funds market, right? They can put it in the Fed funds market. So in the Fed funds market, there is more supply of funds. If there is more supply of funds, what happens to the Fed funds rate? If there is more supply of funds, will the Fed funds rate go up or go down? Anyone? Look, this is just a logical thing. No, it will have to go down. Look, why? Because more supply. There's more supply of funds in the Fed funds market. More supply means always, the price will have to drop. When there's more supply than demand, price will have to go down, right? And the Fed funds rate, any interest rate, if you think about it, I don't know if you ever thought about it this way, but in demand, price is determined by demand and supply. You think demand and supply will change the price, and that's a clear fact. It's obvious. When there's more demand, price will go up. When there is less demand, price will go down. And if there's more supply, price will go down. If there is less supply, price will go up. Okay, and then interest rate is a kind of price, isn't it right? Everyone understands this? Interest rate is a kind of price. Kind of price of what? Interest rate is price for what? Anyone?
Like you said, it's the price of borrowing money.
Yeah. Who was that?
Natasha Castro.
Tasha. Okay. Is it Natasha or just Tasha?
Yes, Natasha.
Natasha. Yeah, you're right. Interest rate is the price for borrowing money. So think about it. Interest rate is also a kind of price. So when there is more supply of Fed funds in the federal funds market, right? interest rate will have to go down. That's how Federal Reserve goes into the open bond market and through the market mechanism affects the effective actual Fed funds market rate. Okay, I told you Federal Reserve first sets the target rate for Fed funds rate, and the actual rate will be worked through the market and to approach the target rate. So this is how the Fed funds rate is, changed or affected, and also this is how they implement the monetary supply or monetary policy. All right, so our time is up already, So that's it for today. That wraps up everything about the ROI. In the next class, we will move on to the second topic, right? I will see you guys. Today is Wednesday, so I will see you guys next Monday. All right? All right, everyone. Have a good day, and see you next Monday. All right? I'll have to take care.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Nobody says anything. All right. Take care, everyone. All right.
Professor.
All right. Take care, everyone.